I'm so excited because today I have Tonya here. Tonya L'Bert. She just taught me how to pronounce her last name. L'Bert.
L'Bert, yes.
And my goodness, that is some story. I got to get her back to tell that story. But anyway, because, well, her name, it's a big deal. But anyway, I've known Tonya for about 8 years or 7 years, something like that. Yeah, you were pregnant with your second.
Yes, I was.
And Tonya now, she's pregnant with her fifth. And so we've known each other, but we've been like ships passing in the night. I've never had an opportunity to sit down with her and talk. And so today we just finished talking for about an hour or so, and I found out stuff about Tonya I've never heard before, and she's much more interesting than I ever imagined. So I've got to get her back to tell some of these stories. But anyway, the reason why I asked her on is primarily because I've heard her voice before, and I said, "Will you please see if you will ever give me a chance to put your singing voice on video, because it is so amazing." And so she just said, I asked her, I kept asking her, and finally she said, "Okay, I'll do it." So, and I said, and if ever, because honestly, I'm no pressure, but honestly, she has made me, every time she opens up her mouth, she says things in such a way, like when she talks to her children and stuff, I don't know, it just tickles me. It makes me laugh, but no pressure to be funny or anything. But I asked her if she would have something to say, and she did come up with something. So, it's all yours.
Hello, YouTube land people. Can't believe I'm doing this. But I was entertaining my friend Mary's invitation to come and make a video for her channel, and I didn't want to be a total idiot, so I said I wanted to be relevant, and I wanted to be helpful, and I wanted to be as honest and as transparent as I could. So as I thought about it, just in my own private time of meditation and thinking about my life, I've been going through this whole analysis of identity and knowing who you are and knowing who you aren't. And then as I thought about that, I said, you know, it takes a lot of courage to come to that place, because once you make those distinctions of who you are and who you aren't, then you have to have the courage to say,
it's the truth.
I am going to be who I am, full out, full on. It takes a lot of courage to do that, and it takes a lot of strength to continue to walk that out. Because as I continue to think about that, the topic of identity is like your identity, it changes, it morphs, it goes through these different things. There are things as you age and mature and learn and grow, things are going to fall off of you, and then some things are going to be added. And so you have to be able to, you know, say goodbye and pack away those things that are no longer useful to you and embrace the new things without fear of, you know, what are your friends going to say? What is your family going to say as you grow and mature and develop into the wonderful being that you are? And
can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Sorry. You know what? It's amazing that you're picking this topic. Because when I talk to my viewers, communicate like that. Yeah. When we talk, so many of my viewers are going through just this. It's like a lot of my friends are coming out to their families, and just like Timmy, you know, he's been, Timmy, my son, some of you don't know, is extremely real. And he just is always encouraging people to be, you know, themselves, just like what you're saying. So this is such a relevant topic. So continue.
Very. And it's like thinking about the whole process of identity and coming to that, I just began to, and I guess part of the thing is, well, for me, my journey in motherhood has really caused me to, you know, pick myself apart and dissect myself, because as raising them, I can only give them what I have.
Yeah.
And what I have is who I am. So I just really began to put myself under this microscope, like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't want to put the wrong thing in them or give them the wrong impression. You want to, I want them to be compassionate.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, what do I want my children? It's time for them to leave my house and I unleash them upon the world. What kind of people do I want to release into society? And I'm thinking, I want them to definitely be compassionate.
Yes.
And I want them to be people of love, and I want them to be warm, and I want them to be friendly, but I also want them to be strong and courageous.
Yeah.
Because you're gonna need that to walk into the different areas of your life when it's time to pursue and go get things and acquire things for yourself. And I began to think about my childhood, and I had I would call it an oppressive childhood. Because I was brought up in what we call in the black community old school. And just to give you an example of what old school is all about, I remember we would go places as a family. It's two of us, me and I have an older sister. And we could be going to a restaurant or going to church or someplace like that. And my dad would park the car and he would turn the ignition off. And he would look back in the back seat at me and my sister, and all we could see in the rear view was like this part of his face that you could see in the rear view mirror. And he looks at us and he says, "And remember, little children are seen and not heard." And this is like the common thread throughout my childhood that and I remember because we would go to church and everyone would always come up and compliment my parents on how well behaved me and my sister. I didn't even know they were here. It was so quiet. Like, yeah, you saw those eyes in the rearview mirror that I saw before we got. You be quiet too. And the other thing was, I remember that it wasn't until I wasn't in high school. I was in high school and my father would do our clothes shopping. We would come home from wherever we'd been and the clothes would be laid out on the bed.
In high school?
Yeah. That was like, I think once we got into high school, we actually got to start going to the mall and picking some things for ourselves.
So up until high school?
Yeah, and if we picked something that was inappropriate, my dad was, "You got your money? I'm not buying that." So it was very much my way or the highway. Yeah. And looking back on that, it began to dawn on me. I was like, wow, I've been voiceless for so long. Wow. This is my takeaway from all that. Not being heard, not having a say, not being able to experiment with your own self-expression, and just basically living out this path and this course that has been set before you. And it's kind of like, instead of having my own voice, I was an echo of my father.
So when did everything change?
Everything changed once when I began to realize, I think it was, my father was over here visiting, as a matter of fact, and it was around dinner time, and I had sat the girls down to eat.
Excuse me, you were already married?
Yeah, this is like recent. Like
wait, you never rebelled in high school?
No.
Wow.
No, I was too afraid for that. I was a scaredy cat.
Wow.
My sister was far more adventurous, far more,
So what happened when all of a sudden...
My father came over and the girls were eating, and one of them, I think it was my second oldest, she made a comment that she didn't like something that was on her plate. Now my father is one of 11.
Oh.
And he was born in the early 40s. So when you're one of 11 in the 40s, my grandfather was working, trying to provide for everybody and all that. It was just a lot of things, a lot of liberties that he did not get to have as a child. True. So, and he brings this up. Well, back in my day, oh Lord. Back in my day, we didn't even get to say that we did not like. I was like, well, Dad, it's not your day, and my children are not one of 11, and desegregation has happened, and I don't get offended if my child says, I don't like these peas, I make her understand I'm not going back in the kitchen. You're free to not like the peas.
Yeah.
You are free to not eat those peas. But as God is my witness, I'm not going back in that kitchen to make you something else. So, I mean, and that's when it hit me. I was like, if I did not step in, then what happened, what my father did to me as a grandfather, he was about to push the mute button on the voice of my child. And I was like, it is so important. That's when it dawned on me. It is so important for people to be heard.
Yes.
Even children, they have to be heard.
It's true.
You have to let them register their complaint. Let them have that. And that's the beginning of them beginning to turn the switch on and activate their power, their own power, and take ownership of themselves. And to me, those are the baby steps into identity. Who am I?
Wow.
Do I have the freedom and I feel like it's so early for me to give my children that freedom to assert themselves, establish this little piece of ground to say, I don't like peas
Yes.
or whatever it is, and to be heard and have it be valid. That you're not the devil because you don't like peas.
Exactly.
It's okay for you to not like the peas. That's you. You take ownership of that. Now let me tell you what mom's going to take ownership of. I'm not going back in the kitchen.
That's excellent.
So you have the choice. How hungry do you want to be in a few hours? That's on you. And I thought, wow, just something that simple began to open my eyes, and just my whole mind was blown to my childhood and how I was raised, and how because my voice was muted and put down on low all the time, that it's amazing the things that takes from you.
It's true.
It's amazing the things that it takes from you, and how it alters your mind and how it alters you and your psyche, that you have to go along with what everybody else is doing. You have to fit in with what everybody else is doing and saying and thinking, because God forbid that you venture off the beaten path and dare to chart your own course.
Wow, I love this, Tonya. So how did that affect did that change things with, 2 minutes, Jose says, but we can go further. We can do it in two parts. Did that affect you in the way, your marriage,
Yes. It's like,
wait, should we stop this right now? And then I heard the baby crying. You can check the baby and then we'll start it again? Oh, maybe that was
no, that's her.
Oh, that was Jubilee's toy.
That's Jubilee on her game.
All right, let's just close this off for a moment and we'll have part 2. Okay.